one of my least favorite parts of doing the podcast. And I mean, the reality is it's not that bad. And it is my least favorite part, but cutting and editing and recording these little promo introductions to each episode are something that I do not really enjoy doing. I always sound incredibly foolish. And if you would listen, like one of these days, I should put together the entire length of what this actually is before I edit it down and cut it down to what I actually release, because they're very long and drawn out, and there's a lot of starts and stops and do-overs over and over and over again. It's kind of comical, but they drive me nuts. I hate doing them. And I guess I could stop doing them if I wanted to, because it is our podcast and we can do whatever we want. But for now, you are listening, and I appreciate it. We both appreciate it. What we ask each and every person that listens to the podcast is to simply share it with somebody. And this is going to force you to talk to somebody. So just talk. Just say, hey, don't text it to them. Don't share it with them. Don't post about it, although that's kind of cool if you want to do that. But legitimately speak to somebody in person and say, you should listen to this podcast, and tell them that they can find it anywhere podcasts are available. No matter what platform you are choosing to stream, download, or subscribe, you can find the Energy is Love podcast. So thank you. Thank you for sharing. Today's episode, that was loud. Today's episode is brought to you by the Refinery Barbershop. The Refinery Barbershop is located in Springville, Utah. If you are one of the many fans and listeners of the podcast that we have here in Utah, and you are in need of a haircut, perhaps a beard trim, perhaps you have never experienced the true straight razor, hot towel, all that kind of barbershop kind of environment, now's your opportunity. Go to refinerybarbershop.com. You can find all their information there. You can also book an appointment directly at their website. And then you can go get your hair cut. You can go get your beard trimmed. You can do all of those things at the amazing Refinery Barbershop. It's a great environment, cool guys, and on top of it, you get an incredible haircut. Or trim that beard up. I actually need a beard trim. So go check them out and go follow them on all of those social media platforms where you follow people, and enjoy. So our guest today is Stephen Roccazzella. Stephen's been on the podcast a lot. I don't know if he's been on a lot. He may be the person that's been on the most. I'd have to go back and look, but he's a good friend of mine. Stephanie and I absolutely love this man. And he was back on episode 130 something, way back in March. And Stephen just recently wrapped up his Wim Hof certification. So that's why we wanted to have him come back on the show and talk about that experience of what it was like to go through the entire process of becoming a certified Wim Hof instructor. Stephen does a wonderful job of sharing openly like he always does. He always brings some level of not just authenticity and truth to the episode and to the podcast, but Stephanie and I, for days and weeks afterwards, are left with not awe-inspiring, although he is kind of awe-inspiring, very prophetic thoughts and experiences that we continue on even after he's gone. So it's a good episode. It's the three of us hanging out in the backyard recording, and you guys are going to enjoy it. I know it. So for now, sit back and relax. And first off, Stephen, we love you. Thank you very much for being on the podcast once again. But you, the listener, enjoy. Sit back and relax and turn it up. Because here we go.
You're listening to the Energy is Love podcast.
The Energy is Love.
The Energy is the Love podcast.
The Energy is Love podcast.
Energy is Love.
The Energy is Love podcast.
The podcast for the universe.
The Energy is Love podcast.
It's kicking your butt, though?
Just a little.
You'll be all right.
Yeah.
Suck it up. Because that makes for great audio. Just suck it up right up the nose.
Ew. No.
So fucking stupid. I looked and it was March is when you were on last. So it's been a long time.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it though, huh?
No.
It feels like it went by super fast.
So he was the
he was
catalyst of March Madness.
Yes.
That's right.
Oh boy.
March Madness that we couldn't call March Madness.
Yeah.
What did we end up calling it?
I don't remember because it ended up being wonderful.
It did.
So I don't remember.
Yeah, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you were the catalyst for Stephanie and I choosing to not, me choosing and then Stephanie coming along for the ride
Reluctantly.
of not having sex for the entire month of March.
Okay.
Yeah. You remember.
Yes.
You remember how well that went.
Yeah. I felt kind of guilty, but...
Did you?
Well, just putting that out there and then you guys actually doing it. I was like, oh man, they're not getting laid. Probably hating my guts right now.
It fucked me up so bad. Like, we had beautiful things that came from it, right? We really, really did. And, like, baby, I think if we look back, because lately we've been talking about how shitty 2019's been, where it's just been a really shitty fucking year. And I think we're going to look back to 2019 and remember, like, oh yeah, there was this bright spot where we didn't have sex during the month of March, because it really was a good thing.
It was. I remember, like, you realizing how bad your eyes were getting and needing glasses to look on the computer. And then after we started having sex again, suddenly you can see. So,
well, that's what I was like. That's what I was saying by I got fucked up. Like, literally, it totally, like, no joke. My eyesight started to get screwy to where things were blurry. Like, I have glasses that I got way back in the day and I never wear them. And I've noticed my eyesight slowly over time degrading. But it was like suddenly where I couldn't even look at the computer. Like, the computer was blurry unless I put the glasses on. Wow. And this was probably like 3.5 weeks in or something like that. So it was towards the end of the month. So at this point, everything was just like really, really
backed up
and pent up and full of vigor. And it got, so that really affected me. And then I think it started to jack up, like, this is way more information that people really want. But like,
are you going there?
Yeah, like the pipes that would run the fluid, that would carry the fluid, started to get all sorts of bizarro and backed up. And I started to get like weird bumps on my balls and stuff.
Really?
Well, not like the ball part, but like so you've got, we'll just do a quick.
It's either seminal vesicles or vas deferens, one of the two.
Yes. Well, the vas deferens is probably what it was.
Yeah.
Because that's what got snipped during the vasectomy. And it was right around that same spot. So I think that's what it was. And that was weird. But we made it through. We survived.
You need sex with me to survive.
I do need to keep my eyesight normal.
Magical.
Keep my balls normal. Yeah.
I was fine. So.
Are we doing like a sound check or are we actually recording all of this?
This is it.
Oh, shit. Okay.
You know, I'm just kind of like off topic, but not really.
No, let's stay on this topic longer.
The 2019 suck thing, Asher, just like a little awareness. Something really big happened in 2019 that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And
we've had lots of things that have been pretty awesome.
I'm just bringing awareness to something. Because he's like, who wrote, when you had that post, it was like 2019 and the X's through it, or not the, but like the circle with the line through it, the no-go. And I said, you thought it sucked. And he kind of sat there and he looked sad. It's like, well, there's a lot of good things, but there were some hard things. So we're just talking about the hard things. But I wonder if he was like,
did you not take the moment to express to him how obviously that's been the highlight?
Well, I didn't say that specific thing had been the highlight, but I'm like, there's been some really good things. And there's just been some crappy things. And that's what we were talking. Because he didn't say it. I just assumed. But I didn't bring, because he just looks
obviously
sad.
We're talking about the adoption.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't know. You handle the conversations with him so well. Like, you tell me I'm having a stroke when I try and tell him things. And you handle, so I guess you need to go fix this.
So Stephen, we had this yesterday where he comes home and he had been out, like he ran over to his buddy's house to see if his buddy could play. Buddy wasn't there, so he comes home. On his way home, he sees this cat, and apparently not that he's had issues with this cat, but in the past he has seen the owners of this cat, right? So whoever's cat this belongs to, he has seen them kick the cat. So he's convinced that the cat is being abused and these people don't care about it and they're terrible people and we need to do something about it. So he comes home with the plan that we need to call animal control and get the cat out of that house, out of that environment, and we need to find a new home for that cat. Maybe I, meaning him, maybe I can take the cat and take care of it for a while until we find it a new home. So then for the next 45 minutes, I have a long conversation with him about all of this stuff. And eventually it like led down the path where I realized why I was so passionate about it, in the sense of like why, because I was like beating this dead horse. I couldn't let this thing drop. I was trying to impart this message to this kid, right? And the message really had nothing to do about cats or animal, like none of that shit. It really just had to do with like judging people and how you don't judge people, right? I mean, we all judge people, but how we have to recognize when we're judging people, and everybody gets the opportunity to make mistakes and all these kind of different things, because it all intertwined with the conversation surrounding this goddamn cat. And he had pictures on his phone where he had like taken pictures of this cat as evidence that it had been, you know, fucked up.
I got it.
And they're shitty kid pictures of like the cat's, half the cat's face. You can't see anything.
There's no visible damage on the cat.
No, it was terrible. But it's like, what do you do? Because he's 13. Everything for him right now is so clearly black and white. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
There is no gray. There is no room for, like, if you kick a cat, if I see you kick a cat, you're the worst fucking person that's ever lived. You should never be allowed to own an animal ever again. Not only that, but you probably need some really hard jail time.
Yeah.
I don't think you should kick cats personally. I kind of side with them. So.
There's some cats, babe.
There's some. I don't think you should really like kick a cat.
So what do you do? What do you do in that moment? Go.
Oh boy. Well, I'm now I've got that song stuck in my head. President of the United States of America.
Which
song
one?
Back in the 90s. Kitty by my foot and I want to kick it. Or something like that. At least that's the words we used to sing. I think that's the lyrics. Well, I would just encourage his, his concern for the cat. I think that's a good thing. You know, God, I'm really on the spot right now. I don't know.
It's so shitty.
Yeah. I mean, I would. Just I would encourage that, but also keep them in reality. There's probably nothing that can be done, but it's good that you feel that way about animals and that you recognize those things and just don't behave that way yourself. You know,
that's how I started the conversation with like, "Hey, buddy, let me give you a reality check," and obviously not in those words, right?
Right.
But like, let's really check in here, and then I try to paint the picture of like, what happens when you call animal control? By the way, it's a Saturday. By the way, we live in a small community. By the way, there isn't actually an animal control officer on duty for Saturday. So you're going to be talking to a police officer. By the way, I know what that police officer's thinking. He does not give a fuck about anything about a cat that could or could not have been kicked.
Yes.
So I try to go down the whole path with him. And then like, what happens when this cat does get taken from that home? It's not like there's all these homes waiting to adopt shitty cats, mijo. He's going to go to the animal shelter where he's going to hang out and probably be put down at some point.
Yeah.
And then
it's super depressing.
It's very depressing. And at one point, I don't know, because Stephanie's just in the other room listening to everything because she chickened out.
I didn't chicken out. We have this thing. Every once in a while, he'll put his hand out. Like if he doesn't like how it's going, he'd be like,
I don't like how it's going.
Sometimes it's because you do not like how I'm handling the situation. So he's like, you want to tap me in? And I'm like, hell no. This time he put out his hand and I was like, yes, boom, you are in. And I took off then. I seized the moment. I took that opportunity.
In the bedroom.
I totally hid.
And there were multiple times where I wanted to tap out. And at one point I started to go down this train of thought where I was talking to him about coyotes because we live kind of in a rural area.
Yes.
And we definitely have coyotes hanging out. And so I went down this path of like, you know, eventually the cat's just going to get eaten by a coyote.
Oh, man.
You said that. I missed that.
And his face just like drops. He's like, you need to stop talking about this. I'm like, buddy, I'm not trying to make you sad. I'm like, this is just the reality. Coyotes eat straight, you know, like the coyotes that live around us right now are existing.
You don't get tapped in anymore.
On cats and dogs that run free because that's what, and he's like, you have to stop talking right now. It was really,
his heart.
Yeah.
No, he's tender.
Yeah. I crushed his spirit. And then I kicked the cat. We have a cat. I'm like, let me show you what we do to cats, mijo. Kick that fucking thing. So yeah, welcome to the podcast. We're glad to have you back.
Right.
So what have you been doing?
It's been interesting so far. Abused animals and backed up vas deferens. And blindness due to lack of orgasms.
It's a real thing.
Apparently. Jeez.
Yeah, it's a real thing. Haven't had it since.
Can I say? I keep those pipes clean. We should have. I'm embarrassed now.
You're
that
embarrassed?
was too far. That was too much. That was above my. Let's just move on.
Okay,
quickly.
We'll move on. So, Stephen, catch everybody up
Yeah.
with what you've been doing since you were on the podcast last.
Well, I actually listened to that podcast, or like the last half of it. For some reason, I felt the need to hear myself talk about that like meditation I had with where I ran into my little boy.
Oh, I got to talk to you about that little boy too.
Okay.
Side note, go ahead.
And so I wanted to hear myself tell that story again.
Yeah.
And ended up continuing to listen. And you had asked me what was missing or what was next in my life, and I had talked about the Wim Hof thing and becoming a certified instructor. So that has happened. So yay! Yeah, that's probably been the big thing. I have a new barbershop under construction right now.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, it'll be done in January, and it'll be 4 times as big as my current one. So I'll actually have room for several chairs and can hire some people, and hopefully that allows me to step away from the chair a little bit and do more.
That's opening in January.
Yes, at least that's what the goal is. That's what we've been told. January. It's in the same parking lot as my current shop, so it's right in the same space.
Same space.
Yeah, but it's part of this little shopping complex that the owner's building. It's going to be rad. Yeah, have a bunch of restaurants and all sorts of stuff in there, so it should increase our foot traffic and allow some room for much needed growth in the barbershop.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah.
Which one? I shouldn't say which one you're more excited about, but because I think I know which one you're more excited about. But tell us what. Because we don't need to replay everything that you've done in the process of getting that Wim Hof certification or anything like that, because it's fucking awesome. But when you look at like your journey with the whole Wim Hof experience, because you're the type of guy that you've been doing it for like years, right? This isn't something that
about 3 years.
Yeah, you didn't just find Wim's YouTube videos and then sign up for his seminar. Like you're a dedicated person when it comes to the process and to the method.
Yeah.
So when you look at your entire journey with the whole thing, not just the experience of becoming a certified instructor to where now you get to teach and guide and push everybody into the space, right? Not push in a bad way, but help everybody.
Right.
What do you think has been, like, look at that 3 years of this experience that you've had with it and what stands out? Like, what stands out that you're most proud of, that maybe beginning this, journey, you didn't realize you were going to get this experience or that experience, or do you know what I mean? Like, what are some things that really stand out?
Well, when I found the Wim Hof method, I had just moved my kids to Nashville, Tennessee. So I was going through the divorce process. I just felt like I'd taken a 3-day drive to my own funeral, dropping my kids off in a different state and, flying back. I was not in a good place in life physically or emotionally. I was about 225 pounds. I was on antidepressants and had been on them for years, just going back to damage from sheriff's office days and, just a rough marriage and all that. And just being a chronically anxious person in general. I had low testosterone, high cholesterol. I was kind of a mess, and the doctor wanted to put me, I'd gone in for just a checkup, and he wanted to put me on cholesterol medication, and he offered the testosterone replacement stuff. And I was like, no, fuck that. I'm going to fix this on my own. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to find a way. And it was around that time that I got introduced to the Wim Hof Method through a podcast, and then watched the Vice documentary and ended up buying the program. So I started doing it just by myself. I was going and soaking in cold reservoirs and, just doing all this stuff all by myself. I didn't have anybody to really show me exactly what to do or to watch my back, but it was a lonely journey. About a year and a half later, I went in for a checkup, and I'd lost 50 pounds. I'd raised my testosterone like 600 points. I'd been off of antidepressants for about a year at that point. I kind of had to wean myself off. I'd been on them for so long. And my high cholesterol was back to normal again. And I did change my diet, and I know that played a role. But getting more into the knowledge of what's happening physiologically with the Wim Hof method, I know that played just as big of a role as changing my diet in the weight loss and in the just the correction of my thoughts and mood and cholesterol, all that. So weight, but this is what stands out to me the most. Or like my biggest takeaway from it. And it kind of came to fruition when I was at the training in Washington and had to stand up in front of a group of incredible people from all over the world and tell them what the method meant to me. But
and that was like the final training, right? The last part.
Yeah, that was the thing that I just did to get my certification. Yeah. But the Wim Hof method is in large part about purposely placing ourselves into discomfort. You're definitely uncomfortable when you get into an ice bath, and the breathing activates our sympathetic nervous system and kind of takes us into fight or flight, and even though it's all controlled, it's still very uncomfortable. But the place that the most uncomfortable place that the method took me to was being happy and learning that I am in control of that. And that was something that I wasn't used to. I have been or played the role of a victim most of my life, where my emotions and my state of mind and everything was completely subject to the outside world. Whatever stimulus was coming in, I was just constantly reacting to that. And so my happiness was dependent on the outside world and other people. And my sadness or my stress or whatever was all being influenced by external stimulus. And the Wim Hof method taught me that I can control my happiness and my stress level, and that was an uncomfortable space, which led me to the most uncomfortable space, which was again standing up in front of all these people and actually shining and letting my light shine and feeling worthy to be there with them and feeling like I did have a good story and that I was, that I had what it took to be a good instructor. And I know that I do. So yeah, that was probably the biggest gift, all outside of all the other, physical benefits and that, getting off antidepressants and all those things. Like, yeah, it's just knowing that I'm the boss of this universe that's on the other side of my skin, and not everybody else. And, life is always going to throw things at me, but I know how to deal with those things so much better now because I'm in touch with the inside. So, yeah. I don't know.
That's awesome.
Does that work?
Yeah, that's
works.
awesome.
That's a big takeaway.
Yeah,
sure.
it's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really, really beautiful.
Yeah. And I'm still imperfect at it for sure. I mean, you've seen me, have some rough times, but compared to the way that I used to deal with things, it's so much better.
Well, there is no perfection in that space, right? There is
Right.
no perfection in the space of like happiness and not feeling sad or controlling, anything, or and there isn't perfection there,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, this is an interesting thought that I had just a few days ago. I've been a little angry with myself, just because I don't feel like I still don't feel like I'm living up to my full potential, and I feel undisciplined in some areas of my life. And I've been a little angry with myself, but I notice that when I do my breath work in the morning, I'm going to kind of intertwine some Wim Hof science in here, like as we as we talk. So, cortisol is a stress hormone, and it's always highest in the morning. And as the day goes on, cortisol starts to dip, and then into the late afternoon and evening, melatonin starts to come up as we prepare for rest. And I think that's an evolutionary thing. Like as we wake up in the morning and we go to leave our cave or our hut or our tribe and go out into the wilderness and hunt and deal with all these things, we need that stress hormone. So I generally feel the most anxious and the most shitty first thing in the morning. Yeah.
Stephanie and I have been talking about that literally in the last few days. Like, I think it was 2 days ago where I woke up and had this like grand epiphany for myself, an epiphany. What was it, babe?
Epiphanies.
Epiphany. And where I'm like, fuck. Like, I am waking up more and more, like, immediately feeling stressed out. Like, I wake up stressed out. It's not like, oh, I'll wake up and relax and then eventually get stressed. I wake up stressed out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God damn it. Like, that pisses me off. That stresses me out.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So I've noticed that, I always do my breath work first thing in the morning. And just as soon as I wake up, before I get out of bed, I just turn my phone on airplane mode and I just do, however long I'm doing, 3 rounds, 7 rounds, whatever. And so I've noticed that it's so good at flipping my mood and balancing out my cortisol levels and stress hormones that I tend to start to have such a good outlook on my life and like where I'm at that I kind of like, oh, you know what, today I'm just going to feel good today and I'm just going to, do me and continue on the path that I'm on and everything's cool. And so I've noticed that it's almost been a little bit of a detriment because like the anger of not living up to my potential, like that can be a driving force. So I've decided, like, for the last couple of days, I did my breath work this morning, but for the previous couple of days, I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to do it this morning, and I'm going to sit in this anger, and I'm not going to try to flip my mood, and I'm going to allow it to have a voice, and I'm going to allow it to, be a driving force for me. So again, another level of control there, where I can flip my mood if I want to, but I don't necessarily have to. Sometimes it's good to just sit in that shitty space and let that be heard. So yeah, so I took a couple days off from breath work and just sat in my anger, and it's been really good for me. So
he says this with a big smile on his face.
Exactly. Because I feel good.
Said fuck it, and then I just got so fucking angry.
Yeah. And I just allowed that to be there. I didn't try to, make it go away. I just allowed it to be present, and it's been nice. So yeah, just another way to use the method. You don't always have to do it every day, but it has become a very powerful tool in just writing out the chemistry in my body, which in turn affects my thoughts and my outlook on everything. So yeah. I don't know. Is that weird?
No, I think I've got that part of it down. I'm like that part of it I'm good with. Like not doing the breath work in the morning and then being pissed off. I am killing that method of control. Yeah. So I've got that one. Doing the breath work, I don't know what's happened. It's almost like I can't do it. I haven't done it in a long time. And every time I just like think about doing it, it gets like, it's just so overwhelming. I don't know what it is. I can't do it. And then it's too loud. So if I do attempt it, which isn't very often, I'm not going to pretend it is, but I can't even do full breaths. Of like my breath itself is too loud. It's making too much noise. So
like when you came out. However long did that go? Stephen came out to the house a few months ago and led a little practice workshop where we had some people come over and stuff like that.
It was in June. It was at the end of June, I think.
Yeah. Anyways, it was a while back, and after that, Stephanie and I both did a pretty good job, and by pretty good, I mean like really good job of doing breath work every day. And do you know what I mean? We were doing ice on a regular basis, at least once a week. And we were doing everything really well. And then both of us started to struggle with the breath and started to fight against it almost. And then it became very, very, very difficult to actually even begin the process of sitting down to do the breath. And like, what's your, figure that out. Wim Hof.
I got it, man.
Let's hear it.
So the Wim Hof method consists of 3 pillars. You've got breathing, you have cold exposure, or if I'm saying it right, gradual, but increasing cold exposure.
Gradual.
You don't want to go straight into, your first time and, but into super, super cold. You want to build up. But the third pillar is mindset and commitment. And that's where a lot of people struggle, is with the commitment. If you want to see long-term benefit and consistent benefit, you got to keep doing it.
Look at us.
It's that simple. Just making
Strange.
the choice.
We have a commitment issue.
Yeah,
we don't have a commitment
We totally
issue,
have commitment issues.
But there was something about the breath work that, like, it was bringing up a bunch of shit.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Like it was,
Good.
yeah, right? But I think that's, at least for me, it was like, everything just got too hard. It got too difficult, too hard. And on top of the way that everything else was already too difficult and too hard. And like, you know us, so you know our story and you know what we've been going through. And we've shared some of it on the podcast. But all of this was like taking place during July, which was hands down the shittiest month that we've had in a really, really long time. And so we're finally coming through it, and we're on the back end of it for the most part. I like to hope that that's the case, but I'm excited to get back into it because it is something that I was seeing big benefits from. And it was only like it was like a practice of 3 or 4 weeks where I was like, fuck, I really, really like this a lot.
Yeah. Well, but you guys still have the tools. So, it's still there. It doesn't go away. It's freaking oxygen and cold. But you still got, I was able to just like introduce you guys to a tool to use, and you guys use it how you want, and when it applies, use it, and when it doesn't, don't. I don't know.
So applies. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And then I got scared. It's like, nope, don't want to look at that stuff. That's way too much.
Was it scary like that day when we when we were out under the tree? And that one, was that scary, or
it had some,
or just your regular Wim Hof breathing?
No, I don't think I didn't do that. I think I did a little bit here and there with that, but I never went to that because I felt like I needed somebody to be watching.
Yeah, kind of babysit. Yeah.
So that had its scary moments, but it was just, that was beyond beautiful. Like, but I know that even as much as I know.
Just to clarify, hold on, babe. What we're referencing, because people have no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
Can we talk about it?
Yeah, we can talk about it.
Can we talk about it?
Yeah, we talk about it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, then go ahead.
There's several different methods of breath work that Wim has in the process, and the standard breath work that you ideally want to try to practice and do every single day. These 3 rounds of breath work, 3 to 5 rounds, blah blah blah. Stephen led us through some power breathing that is significantly different, and does a different thing to your body than just the standard breath work. So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
It was. Go ahead.
Beyond. I wouldn't be able to do that right now just because I can't even do the standard breath work. So just the everyday, like you said, 3 to 5 rounds, however, that became way too intense. Like it wasn't the effects, wasn't the tingle or like it was steadily increasing. I got over 2 minutes,
nice.
But it just, I don't know, the emotion part of it just was too much to where, I don't know. And so then I don't know. I lost all strength to even pick it up. Yeah. You think about breathing and I'm like,
Well, when you're doing it properly, you're breathing from the abdomen first, and then, you start there and then into the chest and kind of imagine the breath going up into your head, so just to fill the whole, torso like a cylinder. But, that kind of belly breathing that's a communication to the body that we're safe and we can be vulnerable. When we're under stress, we're usually tight in the abdomen and we're breathing from the chest. That's more anxious breathing, is chest breathing. But belly breathing that's a sign that we must be in a safe space. And so, I can totally see how that would just tell the body, okay, let's start releasing some of this stored up memory and shit that's spinning around in our fascia and everywhere else. I just learned that recently, that I guess our fascial tissue is like kind of like a memory bank for, you would know this. Being in massage. It's that stores a lot of stuff. So when you're doing this breath work and you're flipping your body chemistry upside down, it can be just opening up the floodgates. But it doesn't have to be like that every time.
Yeah.
It's not like that for me every time. But it can definitely take you to that place.
I know it's good. I want to go back. I don't know.
Babe. We'll go back. We're getting there. We'll go back
today. Just kidding.
No, I'm excited, and I know I've been excited for today because I know that hopefully we'll do a little bit of breath work, and it'll give me a little bit of kick in the butt and a little refocus, because I've been very, very out of focus lately. So, yeah.
Good.
So people go back and listen to the other episode that Stephen was on. It's episode something or another back in the day.
It's in March.
That ought
It's
to
in
narrow
March,
it down.
yeah.
Okay.
I think it was like 130 or something like that,
Would
133
you like me
or
to find
something.
it?
You can look it. You can find it. But earlier you talked about, you went back and listened to that episode and listened to the story that you told about that little boy, the experience that you had with yourself as a little boy.
Yes.
So that's a beautiful story. Go listen to that episode. It is episode what, babe?
I'm still looking. Hold on.
What the fuck are you doing over there?
Hey, don't put the pressure on. I won't be able to look at it. It's 133.
See?
Is that what you said?
Episode. Yeah. And it's, what is it? The picture?
It's like snapshot.
It is. Look at the snapshot.
Look at the snapshot. Yeah. So lately, I have been... The last few episodes of the podcast have been us sharing some vulnerable things. Stephanie and I sharing some vulnerable things, and going through some stuff, and talking about some things that are difficult. And I think it was the last episode. So the episode before this episode, I talked about. What did I talk about, baby? I fucking hate this part because I get all nervous and I don't want to talk about any of this shit. But anyways, you reference your experiences you have with this little kid that was yourself back in the day and everything like that. And I'm starting to have some similar experiences. It is beautiful. It's really, really fucking pretty. But it's really, really, really challenging. And, oh God. Now I'm struggling because I'm trying to decide how much I do want to share and how much I don't. Because Steph helped me the other day in this really beautiful experience where she did a really wonderful job of sitting with me as I felt a lot of stuff that came up. And in the process of doing that, at one point, because I was crying through a lot of it, and at one point there was something about the way that I was crying. I'm going to take a drink because my mouth's getting all... A big, long, awkward pause as Craig takes a drink. There was something about the way that I was crying that felt like the way that I would cry when I was really little, like 3 or 4 years old. There was something about like it wasn't just like the visual of seeing myself or visualizing the way little kids cry or remembering the way our kids would cry when they were little or something like that. It was like I remember crying like that. I remember because it was like the big sobs where your chest is like, do you know what I mean? And like your shoulders. And I think like at one point it felt like, whether it was or not, visually, I don't know, somebody looking at me, Stephanie looking at me, but it felt like my lip was like my bottom lip was kind of out. And I was like, do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it felt very much like this little boy sobbing.
Right.
And it was really, really fucking hard to be in that space. And I did a really good job of being in that space and holding that feeling. And like I made sure to maintain eye contact with Steph the whole time, and like fought really hard to maintain eye contact with her and everything like that. So it was a cool experience that happened recently, like in the last day or two. But it's so funny how resistant I am. One of the things, because we've been doing stretches with the podcast, and one of the things this month that we're doing on top of like just movement every day and being active every day and doing something, is I'm really taking the time to go back and sit in the space of originally what it is I want to find some feeling, some sensation from my childhood back in the day where I can connect with a part of myself that did not feel fat. So some part of myself that didn't have the feeling that he was fat, right? Mm-hmm. So that's been like the stretch for myself this month on top of the other thing that we're doing. And this thing that happened between Steph and I, or the thing that happened that Steph sat with me through, I think was like the first part of that process for me this month. So I'm really fucking excited. But since then, it's been really interesting how resistant I am to any of that space. Like, I don't want to go back there. I don't want to go back into that space of connection with that kid, with the little kid, with any of that time period or that era or any of that emotion at all, right? It's been really difficult to even, like, it's difficult to try to talk about it now. So the reason I bring it up is because I know your story to some degree, not just what you shared on the podcast, but also kind of your journey with that younger part of yourself and things like that. So I want to know if you had, what that experience was like for you. And if you had, because that, like I said, I know you personally, you and me are friends. I know, we share a lot of stuff together. I know that wasn't a one-time thing for you, that was a journey that took time. And so along that way, what was the difficulty of sitting in those spaces, if there were any? Maybe you didn't have any. Maybe you didn't have any difficulty.
When you're asking me, like, my experience, like revisiting that, right? Like as an adult.
Yes.
Is what, okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't difficult for me because other than in men's group, I don't do it in front of anybody else. So usually I've done some pretty intense breathing and started to kind of meditate, and that's what allows me to go to that space, but I'm just in my room by myself. So I feel okay breaking down and crying very deeply and sobbing and allowing that stuff to move. And I don't feel it's not hard for me, but sadly it would be difficult for me to do that in front of somebody else, which is in complete contradiction to being in touch with my inner child or my little boy, because my little boy wouldn't give a shit who saw him. If he was pissed, he would cry, and that's how he would act, and it wouldn't matter who saw, didn't matter. So why does it matter now that I'm a grown man with a beard and responsibility and all this stuff? I can't let anybody see me go to that space. So I don't think I could do that in front of my version of Stephanie, wherever she is, whoever she is. I don't know if I could say right now that I could do that. So that's fucking huge that you can do that, man. Because I don't know. Usually when I get there, I'm just by myself. So it's easy to cry like that if I need to.
But like, did you have resistance? Not necessarily like in the moment, but because an experience like that, and anytime, I mean, it's not just like trying to go back and connect with your inner child or yourself as a child, or anytime we start to process some heavy, deep emotion, it comes with some ramifications. It brings some stuff with it to the party, right? Mm-hmm. What type of stuff did it bring along the way that was challenging for you? And maybe there isn't anything, man. I'm just trying to...
I don't know. I don't, like, just, you mean like anything challenging leading up to having that experience? Or I don't know if I'm understanding the question right. I'm sorry, dude.
You're good. You're good. I'm sorry. You're okay, baby. I love you so much. It's like from way back in the day. Like, if you go way, way back, I know there was like episode 88, but there were some even before then where Steph was on the podcast. I don't remember the first time that you were on, do you? But I love you so much, and you love me so much. And back in the day, because I'm way less...
Heading to a good place.
I am heading to a good place. I used to be very, very overly concerned about audio and the sound. And so I made like a point to tell Steph, like, don't touch the microphone, don't bump the microphone, don't do this, don't do that. And like, it never fails that you do it every single episode in some way, shape, or form.
I try so hard not to.
I know. That's why I love you so much.
The funny thing is that you're like, I used to be. Audio doesn't bother you anymore.
It doesn't bother me anymore. There's, you can see now it's just your ASMR. No, so like this morning I woke up, and as I was coming to, I could feel a part. It's almost like I could feel a part of myself was in that mindset or in that emotional place of like if I try to articulate it in a way that makes sense, it's like there's a part of me that knows I have to go back into that space of when I was a little kid, emotionally, and I have to sit there.
Yeah. And
I think there was a part of me that woke up this morning, and when I started to become like aware of what was going on, at least, okay, I'm awake now. I think I realized that there was a part of me that was sitting in that space, and I immediately got like uncomfortable, and I could feel both, like literally kind of feel the uncomfortableness in my body, even though I had just woken up. But then I could also, like, my brain immediately kicked into like, okay, we know what to do here, and starts like fucking going down the list of, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To-dos and shit and whatnot to suck me out of that place. And, I don't know, like I said,
well, I welcome it. Like it's all like, it's just, to me, that's a sign. Like if I feel like I can open up and let some emotion out, like I want to do that because I'm sick of carrying it. And it means freedom to me, you know? So this is how I've learned to use the little boy experience to help with things like that. And I'll get personal with you guys. I'll open up and I'll share you something that happened just recently. And I think, Craig, maybe you and I have talked about this on the phone, but, so this was maybe a month ago. I had a really, really shitty dream, and I woke up in a really, really shitty headspace. And this was not one of those days where I was like, no, I think I'm going to ignore my breath work and sit in this today. This was like, no, I don't want to feel like this today. So I was like, all right, Wim Hof, let's freaking put this to the test. You know, again, I want to get out of this. I want to get out of this headspace. So I did my breath work. And then I sat up and I started to meditate. And something that I've started doing recently is I'll take these big, deep breaths in, and then I will audibly like hum. And I'll do it with every breath. I'll just hum. And I feel like that vibration going up and down my spine and through my rib cage. And I don't know. I don't want to get too into the science because I don't know for sure, but there's something about humming that activates this thing called the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve has to do with like pleasure center and things like that. Am I right, Steph? Maybe you know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Yeah. So I started to just audibly hum, and another purpose for doing that was I wanted to drown out the noise in my head. Like, so I'm just going to be louder than my head is. And I just was over and over and over again. And everything started to quiet down. And I had a memory of when I was a little boy back in my grandma's house, just like where all this shit seems to start, me being a kid in my grandma's house. And I remember how my mom, when her and I were living with my grandparents, she would get these really severe anxiety attacks. And I remember how she would wake me up in the middle of the night and just have me sit with her and like hold her hand and hug her while she would have these panic attacks. And I was like her little hero. You know, I was like a little support system for her. And then when she got remarried and we moved out of my grandparents' house and moved in with my stepdad and stuff, she didn't need me for that anymore because she had my stepdad now. And what that memory allowed me to do was it opened up kind of some inquiry into myself and my motivation on why I make some of the choices that I make and why I have some of the relationships that I have. And what I gathered from that was that I have put a lot of value in myself, or like the value that I see in myself depends upon, am I showing up for somebody else? And I think I've used that as a motivation to always try to be a people pleaser and to always want to be the hero and put myself on the back burner and go do this thing for this other person. And that's where my value came from. And I think that that's where it probably started, was at a very young age. I was valuable to my mom, and then I wasn't anymore. And so that has helped me change the way that I choose to spend my energy, and to make sure that when I am showing up for somebody else, I'm doing it for the right reasons, and also to not ignore myself anymore, because like the person that needs little hero Steven is Steven. That's who needs it. And that's who I have just kind of traditionally ignored. You know, like if I say that I'm going to go to the gym or I'm going to do this today, and then if somebody calls and is like, hey man, can you come and help me do this thing or whatever, I'll immediately go do that. Or if somebody calls on the phone, or I'll start thinking about, well, who can I reach out to? Who can I check on? How can, you know, and all these, and it's almost like I was doing it as a way to avoid me and the things that I should be doing for me. So I welcome those experiences, because it seems like when I am able to go back there, I take something beautiful with me when I leave that space. When I leave grandma's house and I leave being 5 again, I take something beautiful into my life. So I really welcome it, you know. Like, I'm okay with getting sad and feeling fucked up and letting those things come up, because I know on the other side of it, there's a gift there, or there's a strength or an understanding of something. So yeah, that would be a big motivator on why I've chosen like the female relationships and stuff that I've chosen in the past. And by becoming aware of that, I am not only attracting, but choosing completely different types of relationships and women that I have in the past, and it's because of that experience. So that was hugely beneficial in that regard, but also in just remembering, okay, why am I doing this? Am I trying to ignore myself? Am I trying to not deal with something in me? Am I trying to not do something for myself because I don't feel value when I do things for myself? Am I trying to, keep doing for others so that I feel valuable and I feel worthy? So it's made me aware of that, and I can start to, navigate life with that awareness, which is really nice. So yeah, man, dude, I just go into it. If I find myself drifting back to grandma's house, I just go, all right, here we go. Oh boy, let's see what we're going to get this time. 'Cause it's always something good, So.
Yeah, baby, you're scratching your throat. That's a surefire indication that
I got an itch.
No, you've got a lot of shit that is coming
paying
up
attention
for you.
to me scratching my throat is a surefire indication that you have got a lot coming up for you, and you are deflecting away from it.
It is very, very much the case where I definitely want to deflect. Anyways,
yeah.
So,
well, just let me just tell you something. Just to back up Steph for a minute here.
Yes.
Like when you first started to talk about, when you decided you wanted to speak about your experience trying to get in touch with that little boy, and your mouth all of a sudden got dry, that's like a sign of kind of going into fight or flight mode, even if it's very mild. Yeah, just your throat or your mouth going dry is yeah. So, and then you're breathing. So
got very shallow. And yeah. I mean, yeah. Good job. Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah. I just wanted to just seeing if I was right. I guess
you get the fucking gold star for the podcast today. Yeah, dude. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm at a. It's not a crossroads. It's not a. I'm at the base of another peak, like another, and not like all the way down at the bottom, but like I'm at that last 500 feet that you have to like scramble hand over feet across, like, the edge of the mountain to get up to the very top and risk life and limb. And like, there's no ropes or anything like that. I just gotta, like, that's what it feels like where I'm at right now in my life, where I'm like, 500 feet away from this thing that I've been working towards, in the last 500 feet is like the most scary. It is frightening, and I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it at all. I don't know what is in that space back there with that little boy.
Yeah.
The little bit that I've touched upon, the little bit that's kind of come up, like there's so much sadness. And I don't think it is, I think there's definitely a component of it that is like the fear and the sadness of that I have given it over the years, right? Kind of the weight of that energy over the years. But I think that's just a small part of it. I think the reality of it is there's a lot of sadness back there. Excuse me. And I don't know what the fuck it's connected to, man. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's wrapped around. I don't know what is going on. But like that kid is really fucking sad. And like I gotta go find out. And I don't want to. So that's why I will deflect to Stephanie scratching her throat. But awkward silence number 2 or 3 for the podcast. We only have a little bit of time today because we got some fun stuff that we're going to be doing. I want to ask you, do you have anything, because you and I, sometimes I think that we would benefit from the perspective of a woman. Not sometimes.
Like, second that.
All the time. I think like, because there's often times where I get, like I'm in my cocoon of man stuff, right? And then sometimes Stephanie will just bring awareness to something that it's like, oh yeah. And it's because she's a woman, right? Is there anything right now in your life that you want Stephanie to bring awareness to for you? Anything that like you want her to highlight or speak to? Because baby, you do a really good job of it.
Especially yeah. Do you know what I mean? Shall
like
I change your life right now?
Sometimes we get stuck in the because you and I do a lot of work together, and that's Angel now bumping the microphones. But yeah, what do you think you're stuck in that maybe Steph could shed some light on, if anything?
Well, wouldn't she be the one to answer that question? I mean, I don't know.
Do you have anything that you want to ask her that you want a woman's perspective on?
I don't know why this is coming up, but it is. So we'll just roll with it.
Okay.
What do you see when you look at me?
What do I see when I look at you?
What do you see?
There you go,
like
babe.
besides the beard or whatever, besides physical appearance, like what am I putting out? What is my energy like?
Yeah. That's kind of a different question.
Okay.
What is your energy like? Your energy is amazing, by the way. You walk through the door and I can't believe you're doing this on the podcast.
Just speak freely, babe.
Yeah, but I need to get into that and not think about the mic.
So close your eyes. Don't think about the big black thing in front of your mouth.
Okay. One of the things that I thought of earlier was, I wonder what kind of life-changing tidbit we're going to get from you this time. Because when you show up, something amazing always happens, which is pretty cool. There's no pressure. Like, well, how are you going to fix our lives this time, Stephen? You just have such this easygoing, welcoming about you. Now, I don't know you like Craig does, and oh my gosh, I feel so uncomfortable. I do not feel like this is appropriate for the podcast. I want to have this conversation with you so bad, but having it talking into a mic just doesn't feel genuine. It feels like it's a performance, so I don't like that.
Oh, you definitely don't have to.
I'm going to try and allow me to elaborate later, please. And,
okay, sure.
So your energy is very uplifting. It is very engaging. Like, I want to know what you have to say. And when you talk to people and just like that, you seem to like lock on. Like, it feels safe to have a conversation in your eyes, which is a unique thing. Because as I look away, when people are talking to me, I don't have a hard time locking on to them. But when I talk to them, to be able to lock back on, that's something that isn't very there. So your energy is a very safe space to be around.
Okay.
So that is beautiful.
Thank you.
And I see when I look at you, I do see a lot of love and a lot of the phrase that I keep getting is journeyman. Like this constant searching, looking for that thing, that piece that makes everything fit, everything makes sense, everything okay. That answer, that feeling, that, and just this, oh, now I'm nervous. I'm sorry, I shut off. I went into my own head. Did you kick me out of your head? Did you kick me out of it?
I hope not.
I don't know what just happened. It was very, I felt connected to you, and then all of a sudden it just like, whoosh, I lost it. Let me try again. It's okay to keep looking, but don't forget to look at what you have. Kind of, like, yes, you are enough. Yes. Right now.
Thank you.
I want to hug you.
I would take a hug.
You take a hug.
Absolutely.
Can I give him a hug? I know we have the microphones in this app. Let me give you a big hug.
Yeah, that's not exactly what I had in mind, but
sorry.
that totally works. That's a good thing, yeah. You give great advice, my love. And it's not just like advice, but like you have such wisdom. But I was thinking of more along the lines of like, I don't know. There's lots of times where you say things that I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't even think that. Like we obviously think vastly different than one another.
I know that's not what you meant, but that's not what he asked.
I know, no, I'm not complaining at all.
My
It's a
bad.
beautiful thing.
No. Thank you for asking
Yeah,
that.
no, I'm not complaining.
I got some words for you, mister.
Well, I think it was appropriate because I want to know what people see when I am in their presence or what they feel, because I want to make sure that as I move forward with being an instructor and a father, and like that I am open and welcoming and people feel safe and they feel like there is something that they are going to like, they're excited to hear what I have to say and things like that. Like, yeah, so that's what I was hoping, that's what I was kind of hoping for, is that, okay, like all the work I've put in and like it is paying off, and I'm getting to where I want to be. I'm becoming the man that I want to be, so yeah, like, I don't know if I needed advice, maybe just reassurance. And I definitely got that. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What are you laughing at?
I love you.
I love you too.
What?
I'm just like uncomfortable and ready for the attention to be moved.
I'm ready to, look at Angel.
Hi.
Beautiful Angel. We should take a picture of Angel and put her up on somewhere where people can go and listen. Okay, we'll wrap up because we got shit to do.
Okay.
Stephen, thank you so much, man.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. I love you.
Thank you. Love you too.
I love when you come and be a guest on the podcast because it's like Steph said, you always bring wisdom. You always bring when were you out here last? Like you came out here a while back and like Stephanie was talking about, she was hinting at how you bring like life-changing things to, like you dropped these truth bombs in our space that resonate, like, March, it's don't have sex for a month. Okay, we'll try that. And that was super fucking profound. And I don't remember what it was when you were here in June or at the end of June, but she's very accurate. You do bring that when you, like when you show up, when you get out of your head, when you get out of your, do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you just show up in who you are, like
Yeah.
you do bring shit. And did a terrible job. You bring shit with you. No, but it's
Good shit.
awesome. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So that's why I'm glad that you are back on the podcast.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, and just for the record, I did not suggest that you guys take a month off of sex. All I did was tell a personal story, and you guys chose on your own
Yes.
to do what you did.
Yeah, no, that was definitely my decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a little put off by it, but
Yeah.
I came around.
I did not advise abstinence. I just shared a personal story. That's it.
I love you, Stefan.
I love you too.
I love you, Stephen.
I love you too, brother.
I love you, Stephen.
I love you too, Steph. Thank you very much.
It's the Energy is Love podcast.
Abused animals and backed up vas deferens and blindness due to lack of orgasms.
It's a real thing.
Apparently, the most uncomfortable place that the method took me to was being happy. Life is always going to throw things at me, but I know how to deal with those things so much better now because I'm in touch with the inside.